Welcome to my channel. Today, we're exploring Stellar Defiance, a sci-fi journey where humanity stands strong and defies the odds across the galaxy. Dive into epic starship battles, powerful tech, and the resilience that makes us unstoppable in a universe full of challenges. If you're ready for a thrill-packed adventure in deep space, hit subscribe, and let's get started. The moment humanity first ventured beyond the boundaries of their world, they were faced with the wonder of the unknown. The stars, once a distant hope, now became destinations. The alien species they encountered were unlike any they had ever imagined, beings of great intellect, strength, and technology. Yet despite the vast differences between them, humanity quickly realized something universal: the need for connection. At first, contact with these alien civilizations was practical diplomacy, trade, and the sharing of knowledge were the priorities. But soon, something unexpected began to take root. What could have been a cold, transactional interaction between species turned into a true cultural exchange, and at the center of it all was a strange yet essential element of human culture: games and sports. It began innocently enough. A group of human explorers, after a long mission in deep space, landed on a planet where a species of reptilian aliens, known as the Zilera, had been observing Earth's broadcasts. The Zilera were a warrior society, proud of their history of survival and battle prowess, but they were also a species defined by stoic ritual. Their culture was built on a sense of honor in conflict, but not in play. They had no concept of sports or leisure competitions. The closest thing to such activities was their combat training, which was grueling and deadly. So when the humans first introduced the concept of games, something that did not involve life or death, the Zilera were skeptical. But it didn't take long for them to see the allure. The humans, ever enthusiastic and willing to share their culture, introduced the Zilera to the concept of football, a game of strategy, athleticism, and team spirit. They taught them the rules, demonstrated the intricacies of the game, and played matches for fun. At first, the Zilera were bemused. They could not understand how a game of kicking a ball into a net could be so engaging, so entertaining. Yet, as the humans continued to play, the Zilera found themselves becoming drawn into the competition. There was something intoxicating about the unpredictability of the game, the teamwork, and the rush of adrenaline without the risk of death. They could compete fiercely, show their prowess, but the stakes were not so high as to endanger their lives. The Zilera, always proud and competitive, quickly took to the game, and soon, they were adapting it to their own strengths. Their reptilian agility and sharp reflexes made them formidable players, and they introduced their own variant of football that emphasized speed and agility, leaving out many of the rougher aspects that humans had initially enjoyed. But it wasn't just football. The Zilera introduced human players to their own traditional games, many of which involved complex physical challenges that tested endurance, agility, and willpower. It didn't stop there. The spark of interest had spread. The humans had shown that games could be more than just pastimes. They could be avenues for connection, for learning about one another, for understanding each species' unique strengths and weaknesses. Soon, humans began introducing more of their sports to other species: basketball, baseball, tennis, and even more niche activities like chess, martial arts, and the ever-popular concept of video games that became an instant hit among younger species. The next species to embrace this idea were the Etherians, a race of aquatic beings from a water-covered planet. They had no interest in traditional land-based games, but their culture had long revolved around deep water combat and sport, and they were fascinated by the idea of combining land-based human sports with their own aquatic traditions. The humans shared swimming-based games like water polo and synchronized swimming, and in return, the Etherians taught them their own games, which included intricate forms of racing through the ocean's depths and complex water-based obstacle courses. These games were unique, requiring speed, agility, and a deep understanding of how to navigate in an environment that was foreign to humans. The Etherians, although initially skeptical of some of the land-based sports, began to see how these competitions fostered teamwork, camaraderie, and even friendly rivalries. As the exchanges grew, so did the idea that games could act as a bridge between cultures. What started as a few shared activities between humans and the Zilera evolved into something greater: an interspecies exchange of culture, fun, and the shared experience of competition. With each new alien species humanity encountered, the sport exchange grew. The vast galaxy, once divided by light years of distance, suddenly seemed smaller. Games became a universal language. The Tsilkor, a species of insectoid beings who communicated through chemical signals and pheromones, became drawn into the concept when they were introduced to the strategic complexity of games like chess and Go. Their society had long been based on the principles of logic and strategy, and these games struck a chord with them. It wasn't long before the Tsilkor were hosting their own grand tournaments, blending the cerebral aspects of human games with their own pheromone-based methods of communication and social interaction. A stunning development occurred when humanity introduced the concept of team sports, something that was foreign to many species. The concept of cooperation, competition, and relying on others for mutual success was not universally understood. Many alien races viewed individuals as solitary or hierarchical creatures, with no real emphasis on teamwork. But as more species engaged in team sports, they saw the value not just in competition, but in collaboration. The Tralchuans, a race of highly intelligent but solitary beings who had spent millennia in self-imposed isolation, were among the first to understand the power of teamwork. It was their introduction to team sports like rugby and soccer that transformed their society. They began to develop their own games, blending elements of human sports with their own competitive spirit, and soon, they invited other species to join in their tournaments. The idea of a galactic game started to take shape. The first interspecies tournament was nothing grand, just a small, informal event, with a handful of participating species. But it quickly grew into something larger. The games weren't just about competition anymore, they were about sharing a common experience. The Galactic Games became a symbol of unity, of peace through play. The competitive nature of the events pushed species to improve, to innovate, and to showcase their skills. And through these competitions, they learned to understand each other in ways that diplomacy and trade could never achieve. As more and more species joined the tournaments, new sports and games were invented. Some were completely new, inspired by the cultures and physical abilities of the alien participants. Some species created hybrid games blending elements of multiple Earth sports with their own traditions and physical limitations. Humans found themselves participating in games that involved zero-gravity environments, mind-powered games that tested cognitive abilities, and even games that combined physical strength with a species' native powers such as psychic abilities, bioluminescence, or the manipulation of elements. But the true magic of the Galactic Games was not in the spectacle or the innovation, it was in the friendships that formed across species. Through these games, rivalries turned into alliances. Bonds were formed between competitors from vastly different backgrounds. Species began to trust each other more, not just because of political negotiations, but because they had shared moments of vulnerability, sweat, and triumph on the playing field. They had laughed, celebrated, and even shed tears together in the aftermath of a loss or a victory. One of the most inspiring examples of this interspecies connection came from the day the first mixed team was formed. Traditionally, teams had been made up of members from the same species, but the Galactic Games saw its first mixed team during the 10th Intergalactic Tournament. It was a team composed of humans, Zilera, and Tsilkor, a blend of different biological forms and ways of thinking, but unified by their shared love of sport. The mixed team competed not just for the thrill of victory, but for the thrill of the collective effort. They learned how to communicate, to understand each other's unique strengths, and to compensate for each other's weaknesses. In a sport that required them to coordinate their movements in ways they had never experienced before, the team succeeded by trusting each other and working as a cohesive unit. The Galactic Games grew into an annual event that no species could afford to miss. More and more species found their way to the Games, either as participants or spectators. The event had become a celebration of diversity, a grand display of the unique qualities each species brought to the table. What had started as a simple cultural exchange of games had now become a symbol of what could be accomplished when beings of different backgrounds came together in the spirit of fun, competition, and mutual respect. The ultimate impact of these games was profound. As species shared in the spirit of friendly competition, they began to see each other less as rivals or threats, and more as partners and collaborators. Politics and war took a back seat to the new alliances forged in the fires of sport. The Galactic Games were no longer just about the games themselves, they were about the unity they brought. They were proof that no matter how vast the distances between worlds, or how different the species that inhabited them, there were universal threads that could tie them all together. The human introduction of games and sports to the galaxy had transformed the way civilizations interacted. Where once there was distrust and isolation, now there was shared laughter and camaraderie. The Galactic Games had become more than just a tournament, they had become a testament to the power of play, of competition, and of connection. And in the end, humanity had not only introduced the galaxy to games, they had introduced it to the very idea of cooperation, of unity, and of the fact that even the most diverse and alien species could find common ground in the shared joy of sport. The humans had unwittingly created the greatest peacekeeping force the galaxy had ever known, one that was born not from treaties or laws, but from something much simpler, the joy of play.